And hello, and welcome to Friends of the Court. I'm Ian Snow, and I'm with co-host, attorney George Bassias. And today we welcome attorney Steve Bandel. Steve, welcome and thank you for coming.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. First, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background as a lawyer, and the types of cases that you handle.
Well, I consider my practice to be a general practice, mostly litigation, accident cases and nursing home neglect cases. I also do a fair amount of criminal defense cases, wills and estates, as well as real estate closings.
Great. Okay, and where is your practice?
My office is in Garden City. It's 666 building by the Roosevelt Field Mall. It's a popular building.
Okay. And what's the name of the firm?
The firm is Bandel and Bandel, and my partner is my brilliant and beautiful wife, who mostly practices in medical malpractice.
Another very actually interesting, exciting area. Okay, let's start with our questions that have been submitted to us and we put together. We all face the decision sooner or later on what to do with an elderly parent. Do we take them in to live with us? Do we place them in an assisted living or care center? Or do we place them in a nursing home? What is it that plays a role in this decision?
Well, first, Ian, let's distinguish between a nursing home and a care center.
Assisted living in a nursing home.
Assisted living. It really has to do with the degree of care that's required. Someone that's living in an assisted living facility typically does not need the 24 hours a day, 7 days a week care, whereas someone in a nursing home will need that care. Keep in mind that there's also, through long-term insurance benefits, that can cover care at someone's home. So personally speaking, my mother, she had been suffering from Alzheimer's, and they had insurance. She was able to have someone come and live in the house, whereas if they did not have that, could not afford to put someone into a nursing home.
So should somebody be looking at insurance even before it comes time to make those decisions?
Absolutely, because once you hit 50 years old, 60 years old, the rate of the insurance is going to be very high, be very costly. But if you start when you're 30, you can get in at a good rate, and you're guaranteeing that you'll have care in your home once you get older.
Okay. We all hear horror stories about placing our loved ones in a nursing home. From a negligent perspective, what are the most common kinds of claims for negligence that you've seen?
So typically negligent claims arise from falls, choking while eating, and bed sores. Those, I would say, are the three primary causes of that give rise to negligent actions. There's also abuse that takes place in nursing home cases, but for various reasons, typically the difficulty in proving such a case, they're not as there aren't as many abuse cases as the other kinds.
Yeah. If somebody calls you, Steve, regarding a potential claim of negligence or personal injury to a loved one due to the negligence of a nursing home, what are some of the factors that you consider in terms of deciding whether or not to take the case?
So let's first take a look at what happens when someone enters a nursing home. Person enters the nursing home and there is this comprehensive care plan team that's comprised of all the different medical experts from the different medical areas. So you would have a medical doctor, a nurse, a physical therapist, occupational therapist, a dietitian, nutritionist. They all will do their own examination of the incoming resident, and then they will get together, typically I believe it's within 5 days, they'll get together and have this care plan meeting where they decide what kind of treatments do we want to provide for the different treatment modalities. So for example, if someone enters a nursing home with a fractured hip, The care plan team would get together, they would do their individual examinations, and then they would discuss, okay, what are we going to do to take care of the hip? What are we going to do to prevent falls? What are we going to do to prevent choking and prevent bed sores? So they get together, they devise this care plan. What I am looking at when someone comes to my office is that assessment. Was that adequate assessment? Did they get it right? Let's take, for example, falls. Different factors go into falls. So, for example, has there been a history of falls? Did the person use any kind of walking device, a cane or blanking on the word?
A walker.
Oh, or a walker, yeah. Also, medically, do they have diabetes that's going to prevent the blood flow to the lower extremities, going to hinder their walking? Are they mentally competent? Someone who might have dementia might think they're at Shea Stadium and don't know exactly where they are. They're going to get out of bed not really knowing where they are. So the care plan, the care team needs to consider all these factors, and then they'll come up with a numerical number that correlates with the risk level. So is he a high risk or a low risk? So once they've done the assessment, then they need to prescribe the treatments to prevent the falls, and then last, it has to be carried out. Whatever's prescribed has to be carried out by the nursing staff. So when I get a case, the most important thing is what's in the records. And that's the entire case with these nursing home cases. What do the records show? Was there an adequate assessment? Was the prescribed treatment appropriate? And did the nursing staff do what they were supposed to do in providing treatment? And frankly, it's that third element where most of the cases arise from. And it's not because the nursing staff is lazy or they don't want to do their job, but it comes really from a lack of sufficient number of staff members. So if someone is a high risk for falls and they need assistance being taken from the bed to the bathroom, for example, they could be ringing that buzzer, but there's just not enough staff to come and get them when they're needed.
Right, and actually one of our questions is right on that subject. But first we'll talk about working with a new case. Having decided to take a case, in simple layman's terms, can you tell us the process of making a claim, filing a lawsuit, and the development of the case through settlement and trial?
Right, so as I just indicated, the most important thing up front is the records. So we want to get all the medical records, and they're very complex. Take a person who's been in a nursing home for 10 years. You need somebody that's going to be able to go through all these different kinds of records that nursing homes keep and to make determinations and let me know what is the issue. So a lot of times I get the records and I send them to a nurse expert who will then write a detailed report explaining to me what the negligence is, that the negligence acts are.
Yeah.
Something that's also unique or prevalent in nursing home cases is the plaintiff is typically very elderly, might not be able to communicate on their own. They might be deceased by the time that the investigation is done by an attorney. So it's important. So things that are needed are either obtaining guardianship. It's something called a guardian ad litem, a guardian for the purpose of litigation, or we need to. If there's no will, we need to do an estate administration, or we need to do a probate and get the authority to then get the records. Because without the authority to act on the decedent or the nursing home resident's behalf, you can't do anything.
So you could be your mother or father's favorite son or daughter, but if you don't have that guardianship file, then you won't be able to move forward.
Correct.
With the court process.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you mentioned the importance of records. Now, when we're choosing either an assisted care facility or a nursing home, is that something right at the beginning that we should be thinking about and keeping our own copy? Are people entitled to those records, and can they get them shortly after they're produced and keep their own file of them?
Yes,
to maintain the integrity of them.
I definitely believe that a family member or someone who is the representative of the resident, they are entitled to get all records. Typically, nursing homes will not give you a hard time if you are that family member who is the named representative for that patient.
What do you think the nursing home defense sees as weakness in a case versus strength, in a case from the plaintiff's perspective?
So really the only thing that comes to mind here is when there is bed sores, also known as pressure sores or decubitus ulcers. There's so many different factors that go into that. Nutrition, as well as turning and positioning, the actions of the nursing home itself. But something defense attorneys will typically say, well, after they left the nursing home, they got better. Well, my response to that is that the fact that they were able to get better means that they had the ability to prevent the bed sore in the first place. And under the public health law, a person entering a nursing home without a bed sore should not get a bed sore unless it's clinically impossible. So if a person is getting better after they leave the nursing home, they never should have gotten that bed sore in the first place.
Yeah. Now, clarify a little bit. You kind of lost me. How often do people leave a nursing home?
Two different types of residents in a nursing home. One is the long-term resident who needs that 24 hours a day care, and that cannot be given by a family. And then there's those who are entering on a short-term treatment. So someone like in the example before who fractured a hip, they went to the hospital, now they need physical therapy. So they're going to go into the nursing home just for physical therapy. It might just be for a week or a month, so it'd be short-term. But I've had short-term residents get bed sores. And it's very common, and the bed sores grow very quickly.
And is that a problem from a treatment not being followed through, and rotation and some kind of getting them out of the bed and exercise? Is that a factor in a lot of bed sores?
Yes, absolutely. It's maintaining pressure on that one point, typically the low back. Once they see a redness to the low back, the nurse should notify the physician. The physician should prescribe turning and positioning so that every hour or two they're rotated one side, other side, and then back. In order to prevent the bed sores.
So there is reasonable treatment for it, and it's not a condition that just has to happen.
Correct. Bed sores should not happen, minus the inability of the body to recuperate, blood flow, things like that.
My question to you, Steve, is when an elderly person in a nursing home has a bed sore, is that prima facie evidence or any type of evidence that this person is being neglected?
It's evidence. I wouldn't say it's prima facie, meaning it's not a slam dunk. You have to still be able to show that there was no way to avoid that bed sore.
Got it.
Steve, if we have someone that we love, a family member in a facility, some people must fear bringing a claim, believing that if they pursue a claim or legal action, that their loved one could be mistreated as a result of them making a claim. What would you say to someone who has that concern?
I always recommend to anyone that comes to my office, change the nursing home. It only takes one staff member have an attitude, to be retributive to your loved one. So I always make that recommendation. In where they have not changed, there's never been any retribution. So it might just be an unwarranted concern.
Knowing what you know about nursing homes, can you give listeners any type of advice as to what precautions they should take to make sure that their loved one is not a victim of nursing home negligence?
I think the most important thing, and I think it's common knowledge, visit your loved one in the nursing home. It's a kind of I don't know, old wives' tale, but if you don't visit, they're not going to get the best treatment. But I believe in that. And it's not just coming and visiting, it's also doing your own examination of your loved one. Do they have any bandages on their feet or their back? Why is that there? Or be there when they're being bathed. Look and see their back. Is there any redness to their back? You have to, the nursing home is supposed to, but they won't always tell you when something's going on. Even if it's just some redness, they don't tell the loved ones typically. And if that's not treated, that can turn into stage 2, stage 3 decubitus ulcer within a matter of days.
Yeah. Have there ever been instances where a group of caregivers has asserted that they don't need to share information with family who's concerned members of the family about what treatments have been going on? Or did they say that's not your business, that's something that we handle here, and that they end up not sharing all the information that they have about the care for someone?
Typically, the nursing home will deal with one representative of the family. If other members of the family start to get involved, they probably will try to limit it just to that one person. So they might not provide it to all members and be repetitive like that, but just keep it all with that one representative.
It sounds like running a nursing home could be a real challenge that has unique liability and a very challenging type of business to run.
Definitely is. I think, there's that balance between wanting to make money and wanting to provide care. And where is the money coming from? A lot of it's coming from Medicaid. And there are strict restrictions on how much is paid to the nursing home for different treatments. So it is a balancing act.
We touched earlier something that I think must be fairly common that occurs when a disabled person needs to go to the bathroom. So they call for help, and either someone shows up very late or maybe even not at all. If the person who's disabled tries to go to the bathroom and falls, is the nursing home responsible?
I definitely believe that is a factor of negligence. It tends to show that there wasn't sufficient number of staff to take care of this individual. So, well, again, it might not be a slam dunk, but it is definitely evidence that they don't have sufficient staff, and that's what resulted in the injury, in the fall.
I've also read, as uncomfortable as it is to imagine, that sometimes nursing homes have even tied somebody to their bed to prevent them from going to the bathroom, and this forces them to urinate on themselves, or worse, if no one's coming. What are the ramifications here for the nursing home? And is this a case that can have a dollar value for damages? Or do you need more of an injury like a fall or a break or a serious personal injury caused by neglect?
Typically, you would require an additional injury, like a break or some kind of permanent injury.
So just the degrading nature is not necessarily enough of being caught in a situation where you had to go to the bathroom inside a bed.
So when I start a lawsuit, in my complaint, I'll bring different causes of action. one is be for negligence, and one will be for violating the public health law. 2801D of the public health law requires a nursing home to act in a certain manner. And one of the requirements is that they treat all residents with respect. So there can be violations of that, but in my experience, I would not take that alone without a further injury.
Yeah.
In a lawsuit, yeah.
Steve, what about a case where there's evidence that personnel have physically abused the patient, like we just discussed, possibly tying them down, or hitting them, pulling their hair, or verbal abuse? Is it common, and is it enough to attract a personal injury lawyer to take a case?
I think it is. Similar to the last question, unless there's a serious injury, I'm not sure if I would take that kind of a case for the purpose of making money, but maybe just take it as a pro bono type of matter, just for the principle of it. Things like, I've been doing nursing home cases for 20 years now. Tying a person has always been a violation of a nursing home resident's rights. Even things like the side rails, they're only allowed up for a certain amount of time per day. There's strict restrictions by the Department of Health of what can and cannot be done. So I think that there are lawsuits, there are claims, valid, viable claims by abuse. Whether or not there's a significant value to them, that's probably not as much as if there was a fracture or some other physical injury.
Yeah. In the event that there has been negligence and abuse, what does a family have to do to prevent it from happening again?
Well, it's the same as preventing it in the first place. You want to keep an eye out. I've had families that have gotten like the doorbell cameras and just hidden them in a resident's room, and then they can keep an eye 24 hours a day on what's going on with their loved one. And again, just examining the resident, seeing what bruises might be on their body that would otherwise be covered up by clothing.
Will the nursing home allow you to install a camera to watch your loved one?
I would say they would not allow it. It should be done discreetly.
Okay. That might be hard to pull off.
Like a little doorbell camera that
Yeah.
just sticks on a wall somewhere that no one even notices it, or a teddy bear camera, something like that.
Right, right.
I guess we'd have to go to a spy shop for that.
In law, the elements of negligence are duty, breach, causation, and damages. How do these elements apply in nursing home cases?
So it's the same. If, as I said, there's a negligence claim, it's going to be the same. The nursing home has a duty to the residents, and if they breach that duty and it causes injury, well, then there's a valid negligence claim. But also, under the public health law, there are certain things that have to be done, like we discussed before. Someone who does not have bed sores should not get bed sores. We all understand that people, especially in a nursing home, they're older, they're going to fall. But is the proper remedies taken? Someone falls, and then there should be a follow-up care plan meeting. And a person, a family member of a resident, they should be involved in that. They should demand to have another care plan meeting and to find out, is there sufficient remedies being taken to prevent the risk of falls, or whatever the risk might be, bed sores, choking.
So concerned family members should spend as much time as possible with their loved ones.
Yes, and not be afraid to demand a care plan meeting, a meeting of all the different specialties of the nursing home. Let's get together. Why is my father falling? What can we do to prevent it?
Somebody watching this program may have concern that their elderly parent or loved one is mistreated in a nursing home. Prior to calling a lawyer, what advice would you give them?
I just again, from a personal experience, I had my father-in-law was in a nursing home, and my mother-in-law would bring food to the staff. And so they took very good care of him. You know, they felt that they were appreciated, and they took this extra care of my father-in-law. So being nice to the staff is helpful, and that way if someone is mistreating them, at least you have maybe one or two people on the staff that would come to you and tell you that this is going on.
Yeah. So good is use your best interpersonal skills as possible. Polite at every turn.
You want to have a friend in the nursing home who's going to care about your loved one.
Wow. George, any other questions
No.
for Steve?
The only thing I'd like to add a comment that for anybody that's watching this show, if you have a nursing home abuse case, you're welcome to call Steve Bandel. We have the number flashed across the screen for you. Do not undertake representing yourself. My advice to you is anything that was said to this program to ask the advice of your own attorney.
If you're looking to place a loved one in a nursing home or you're looking to transfer them, the Medicare website, or if you just go and you Google nursing home compare, it'll take you to the Medicare website, and you can then compare different nursing homes, and you can see the different ratings that they've been given by the health department. Word of caution though, before coming here today, I just pulled up one nursing home that I had actually sued in the past, and they had a overall four-star rating, but then when it broke it down, it said number of staff members, it only had 1.5 stars. So I think that was more important to the health and safety of the residents than the overall number. Yeah. So something to keep in mind.
Well, I think it's important work. As a society, we strive against elder abuse, and the fact that there are some laws that are set in place to protect people are good laws. Thank you, viewers. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. This is Friends of the Court with our program with George Bassias, Law Made Easy. We've been talking with attorney Steve Bandel, and thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.